DOJ saying walang sinabi na DOJ na eto na magkaroon ng ICC warrant of arrest but you see what's happening here, 'di ba? Unti-unti bumubukas sila. Unti-unti, 'di ba? They're sending feelers, no? Unti-unti parang shot across the bow. So we're seeing all of those developments right now, mga kameta, no? But first of all, so balikan lang natin ng sandali itong short natin para makita niyo how I compress kasi yung analysis ko dyan. And then I'll expound on this a little bit and then go back again to my call for action, guys. Kasi mahalaga talaga na something has to be done about it. Kasi sa aking palagay, maraming pa rin pagkukulang. Sa atin lahat, you know, I know people get annoyed na parang, ito na naman si Richard, nagmamaganda ganon. Diba? One second, na ulitin natin ito ito, interact. Sorry, one second.
There could be also a push by the Philippine government to rejoin the International Criminal Court, from which the Philippines controversially withdrew under the Duterte administration. As you know, there are questions as to its constitutionality and whether the Senate, which had ratified the Rome Statute, the treaty that allowed us to join the ICC, whether Duterte's unilateral withdrawal from that was valid to begin with. The constitutionality of that is also under question. Now, this is big. Although there are risks and perils ahead for Marcos Jr., this means that he is in a political sweet spot. He can do the right thing, which is to help ICC, not to mention also fight for the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea. And at the same time, he can also do something that is popular and politically convenient for him. Because in this case, surveys are showing that there's growing support for ICC investigations and potentially also issuance of warrants of arrest and justice on that front. There's also growing indication that the vast majority of Filipinos want the president to take a tougher stance in the West Philippine Sea. Importantly for Marcos Jr., he also now has a chance to strike a blow at the Dutertes, who are directly challenging him in one way or another. But this is where the real challenge lies. Pagdating sa Philippine media, I think it has done a fantastic job of exposing the brutality of the drug war under the Duterte administration. And we have fantastic works by world-class journalists like Patricia Evangelista, whose book has really shed light on the darkness at the heart of Duterte's drug war. But what we need is this. Stories.
Y quiero saber, señor presidente, es si mi hija está viva o muerta.
Lentamente, como para que no nos diéramos cuenta, una máquina.
Of the victims. We need them to have their voice heard. There has to be a human face to the suffering and to the trauma of Duterte's legacy. More and more victims, their families, their children, their relatives have to come out. Dapat in-interview sila. Dapat marinig sila. The voiceless have to have a voice. That is extremely, extremely important. Because I think for all of the coverage of drug war in the past 6, 7, 8 years, not enough attention has been paid to the stories of the victims and their families, per se. And this is something that we have to work on. History has shown us that there will not be any real democracy if there's no justice. And there will be no justice if there's no compassion. And to get the compassion of the majority of the Filipino people, they need to know about the human stories. They need to know about the human suffering here. It is important that their side of the story will be heard. And we saw in many post-dictatorship or post-mass atrocities countries very similar to us, like Argentina, it was very important for the people to hear from the victims and their families per se. And that was very crucial for them to make sure that there will be justice. So I believe that whether you're a journalist, you're a blogger, if you have platform, if you have a voice, give voice to the voiceless. Because this is going to be a crucial moment for Philippine democracy. This could be our chance to make sure that we come to terms with the horrible, dark past. After all, let's not forget, this is not only about politics, House of Duterte versus House of Marcos. It's not about abstract principles. It's not about sovereignty, of whether we're going to protect our sovereignty against an international body. Those are just excuses to avoid accountability and justice. This is about concrete lives of real fellow Filipinos. This is about human suffering. This is about justice. And this is about shaming those who try to justify the wicked and to condemn the righteous. It's about shaming them into conscience and bringing them back into the fold of democracy, pluralism, and humanity.
Ito. Sorry mga kameta, I don't know kung ano nangyari sa internet natin. Mukhang maraming devices and on. I hope nag-improve ng konti itong internet natin. I had to turn off yung mga iba dyan. Ayan na yung mga... Ayan, sige, ayan na yung mga clown show. Yung mga natamaan na naman, yung mga bitter na naman kanina dyan. O kayo na lang mag-vlogger. O kung gusto niyo ikaw na mag-presidente, kayo na lang mag-vlogger. Kung di kayo nag-agree, kung tingin niyo mas magaling kayo, kung tingin niyo may sense kayo, edi mag-vlogger kayo, edi mag-columnist kayo, edi magpa-interview kayo sa around the world. O tingnan lang natin kung may pumatol sa inyo. So please lang, alam ko daming natamaan dito sa mga ginawa natin video. So first of all guys, curb your enthusiasm, all right? ICC is coming, maybe, right? Kasi kaya nga nung isang araw, nung kausap natin si Justice Carpio, sabi ko nga, kung hindi pa nga nahuli yung mga katulad nila Bantag, or hindi nahuli yung mga katulad nila Kiboloy, ilang buwan na yung kay Kiboloy, ilang taon na yung kay Bantag, diba? Lampas na sa isang taon na yung Bantag, magsi-second year anniversary na kay Bantag. O si Kiboloy, ano mansari na, diba? At mukhang alam naman ng iba, nasan sila, pero hindi pa rin sila mahuhuli. So, when you have a situation like that, yung ganitong Banana Republic situation, I find it a bit fanciful to presuppose na automatically kung mag-release ng warrant of arrest ng ICC, even if gugustuhin ng administrasyon, they're gonna move on that. Kaya sabi ko most likely ang pwede mangyari dito is gagamitin yan as Damocles sword, right? Even when na-release na itong warrants of arrest na yan. Because yun nga, ang hina talaga guys, itong track record ng ating gobyerno ngayon at mga dating gobyerno when it comes to going after fugitives or when it comes to operationalizing justice. Alright? Yung kay Teves, yan. Si Teves nahuli pa yan dahil nag-golf course pa. Imagine mo, sa sobrang good vibes ang buhay niya, sa sobrang kampante siya, sa kanyang impunity, 'di ba? Nag-golf pa siya hanggang nahuli, pero hanggang ngayon hindi natin alam nasan siya, di ba? So, let's be extremely realistic, guys. Na I know there are a lot of people who are looking at itong itong mga analysis, developments here. Yeah. I think ICC is slowly moving towards the warrant of arrest situation. But there's a huge, right, a journey of 1,000 miles from yung warrant of arrest, which is more than 50% chance, to actual arrest ng mga tao. Not to mention, hindi pa natin alam kung ang huulin dito is all the way to the top. Abot ba to kay Bato? Abot ba to all the way kay Digong? Diba? So, it's possible na there'll be like sequencings, baka mahabang usapan pa ito. And I see some comments here about the situation in Gaza right now. Let's not forget the situation in Ukraine. Yung ICC, tama naman si Attorney Carranza when we discuss this issue. Para ang bilis na nag-release ng warrant of arrest ang ICC kay Putin just few weeks or months after yung Bucha massacre, right? Dito naman sa Gaza, mukhang the idea of ICC releasing warrants of arrest is not impossible. Although mukhang behind the scenes there's more and more pressure on ICC, by who, di ba? Syempre yung si alay nung sino. Na hindi but which makes you wonder, bakit ang tagal itong ICC na to pagdating sa Pilipinas? Why is it taking so long? Is it because we're not a priority? Is it because... Honestly, I'm not very sure dun sa point ni Ronald na wishful thinking lang sa Putin or Netanyahu kay go lang. I don't know about that. Kasi mukhang ewan ng ICC kung mag-release sila ng warrant of arrest tapos walang mangyari. Although I kind of see also the point na baka yung low-hanging fruit dito ay si Digong kumpara naman kay Putin or Netanyahu. But even that, I mean, yun nga bantag na nga, hindi mahuli-huli. So, I think first of all, we have to be very, very realistic about seeing justice, right? At such a high level, against such a popular figure, or at least who used to be the most popular president on record. under a Marcos Jr., right? And of course, if you're Marcos Jr., inherently, you're also going to be uncomfortable with issues of accountability, justice, and all because, ano ba ulit ang track record ng Marcos, anong tawag dyan? Hindi pala dictatorship, golden era, Maharlika era. So, I think first of all, we have to curb our enthusiasm. That's very, very important. But nevertheless, we are seeing this kind of a snail-paced, boiling frog situation kung saan unti-unti, nagpapakita ng openness ang administrasyon na makipag-cooperate dito sa ICC. Now, speaking of this, I always said, pagdating sa politika, nothing is set in stone. It also depends on what we do. It also depends on what allies do. It also depends on what the international community does, diba? So if you look at yung piece ko about Marcos Jr., before he became the president, I laid out 3 different scenarios. A middling Marcos, a minimalist, almost harmless Marcos, and a maximalist, almost dictatorial Marcos Jr. And I said 3 factors will define that. International pressure, domestic pressure from the opposition, and third, intra-coalition dynamics. And I said, if externally magandang treatment sa kanya ng West kumpara sa China, if internally mahinang opposition, and if tuloy-tuloy itong push ng Dutertes, we will end up with, guess what? What we're seeing right now. So, nothing is set in stone. It depends on how different factors come together. Kaya you have to have a multi-causal analysis to understand what is the direction of the wind as far as the Philippines and the country is concerned. Now, it was precisely in that spirit na sinabi ko mga kameta na dapat may gagawin din ang taong bayan. Dapat ang gagawin din ang civil society groups. Dapat may gagawin din ang media. At sabi ko, napakaganda yung ginawa ng media sa Pilipinas ng panahon ni Digong in terms of in-expose nila yung EJ case, in-expose nila yung talagang marahas na paraan na ginamit ng gobyerno, in-expose nila yung mga kalokohan, in-expose nila yung mga kunyari nanlaban pero mukhang EJK nangyari, tapos of course yung Kian de los Santos, all of those things. Nevertheless, having said that, please tell me if I'm wrong, but don't just tell me I'm wrong. You prove to me when I'm wrong. Wait, ba't nawala yung mga trolls ko? Yung mga nagsabi, mag-ano ka na? Mag-vlogger na sila? Yan, mag-vlogger. Kaya magmamaganda kayo dito sa natin, magka-comment kayo. Di mag-vlogger ka. Di mag-columnist ka na. Tingnan natin kung may makinig pa sa inyo. Anyway, balikan natin ito. Yun, kasi, di ba? Gusto niyo mag-troll. Laos na kayo. Balikan natin ito. Ito yung sinasabi ko, guys. Now, may pagkakulang din tayo. I think one of the biggest problems na napansin ko is, yes, as you can see dun sa ginawa natin short explainer, may mga pictures tayong nakita ng mga biktima, ng relatives nila, ng mga kamag-anak nila, yung mga anak nila, yung mga others. So I got it from available media. So I'm not saying na wala silang ginawa in terms of getting the side of the victims. Pero ang sinasabi ko is, kumpara dun sa, parati natin narinig yung sinasabi ni Digong. Parati narinig natin yung sinasabi ni Harry Roque, yung mga gano'n. Like, kung titignan mo yung airtime na nakuha ni Digong nung panahon ng drug war, yung mga paghahanash niya, yung mga palusot nila, yung mga gano'n nila, and then kumpara mo sa airtime na nakuha ng mga biktima, right? Ilan oras ba pag sinama mo lahat ng testimonies ng mga biktima, right? Yung mga pamilya ng mga biktima, ilang oras yan? Tapos kumpara mo yun dun sa mga hanash ni Digong at saka ni Harry Roque, yung mga ganyan types. Or even yung mga civil society groups, international committee. Sa akin palagay, guys, kulang eh. I don't think we have heard enough from the side of the victims. As I said, yung book ni Patricia Evangelista, which I of course cited dun sa shorts natin, is a great work. It's a much needed work, and I'm happy that it came out because kailangan natin marinig yung at saka malaman anong talaga nangyari. Ang thing ko though is, aminin natin, ilan ba sa Pilipinas nagbabasa ng libro? Ha? Ilan bang nagbabasa ng libro? Ilan bang nagbabasa ng mga columns? Let's just be honest about it. Right? So, I won't be surprised there'll be a documentary or something or movie or whatever. I look forward to that. Pero ang point ko is, even movie, Right? Isang movie, ilang manonood. Isang document, ilang manonood. Ang kailangan po natin is constant constant output sa TV, prime time, sa vlogs. So, yun lang guys, yung talaga yung kulang talaga sa atin. Hearing the side of yung mga victims. Now, naintindihan ko guys, uy, Lone Wolf, sino sinasabi mo Marites? Ikaw or si ano? Marites sina. Mamaya, pag-usapan natin mga Marites na yan. Ito guys, balikan natin. Yun ang, di ba? Yun ang maganda sa live natin. Patola talaga tayo. Live patola. No, I mean, going back to this, I honestly just don't think yung ating taong bayan were exposed enough or narinig talaga nila yung panic ng mga pamilya ng mga biktima. Now, obviously, I'm realistic. Tama. It's also very likely na for a long time, yung mga ibang pamilya ng ibang biktima, siguro ayaw na magsalita. Takot pa siguro yung iba na baka mabalikan sila. I understand that. I mean, in the case of Patricia, I think she was in semi-exile in the US when she was writing the book. Because threatened siya. Andun yun sa libro niya, di ba? I understand that. Pero tapos na yung panandigong. And at the same time, there has to be, I mean, it takes two to tango, di ba? There has to be more courage on the part of the families, especially now na hindi mga Duterte in power. At the same time, there has to be also more outreach by those who have platforms. At I was very clear na hindi lang mainstream media, kaya sabi ko, pati mga bloggers, right? They have to reach out. And yes, aminado ako, bati ako nagkakulang, right? I mean, of course, guys, isang tao lang ako, di ba? I mean, yung isa sa mga nagpa-busy sa atin nung panahon digong was the West Philippine Sea issue. And I can say, it was the constant resistance we had during the time of Digong, together with Jay Batumbakal, together with Justice Carpio, together with the late Roy Goles, together with many great people out there. Lumaban talaga kami throughout those years. Sila Dindo Manhid. I mean, all of these people, we held the line together. Hindi lang yung isang news channel or hindi lang yung isang all of us, we held the line together on the West Philippine Sea. And how I wish, I had the time, the opportunity, even more courage sana to also do my part dun sa war on drugs. Now, may mga kilala ko na iba na nagpa-parachute lang into the Philippines. They go to the areas na may war on drugs na tapos they'll write some book about it or something and then they go out. No, what we need is constant, regular coverage. And especially now, right now, guys. Especially ngayon. Talagang kailangan natin. Kasi feeling ko, yung shadow of fear, di ba? Yung climate of fear ay medyo mas okay na ngayon kumpara nun, di ba? Again, I'm not saying the situation is ideal. I'm not romanticizing the situation on the ground. Pero sa akin palagay, medyo nag-improve yung situation in terms of climate of fear. Siyempre, nakakatakot nung andun pa in power siya, di ba? Alam niyo na, di ba? Pangalawa, at some point, di ba? Kailangan ng hustisya, di ba? At hindi magkakaroon ng hustisya kung hindi malalaman ng tao talaga ano yung katotohanan at ano nangyari. Kaya nga sabi ko, yung book ni Patricia Evangelista was very important because it was really a wake-up call for a lot of people who didn't know a lot of details. But at the same time, sabi ko nga, you need a whole kind of a movement to remind people of what went wrong. Kaya the example I used, mga kameta, was, for instance, Argentina, no? And in the case of Argentina, of course, we saw na nagkaroon ng court case laban dun sa mga military leaders na involved, sangkot dun sa extrajudicial killings, yung desaparecidos. And then they interviewed the victims, yung mga, of course, in this case, hindi naman lahat ng biktima pinatay nun. Yung mga buhay pa, yung mga na-rape, yung mga na-torture. They came out, national TV. And then, of course, yung pamilya nila, yung iba, hindi nila alam kung buhay pa yung anak nila or hindi. So, nagmamakawa sila doon sa court, in front of the national TV. Doon sa court, tinatanong nila, doon sa mga generals, buhay pa yung anak ko. Diba? So, that was very moving. And you could see in that movie, which is based on true story, by the way, 1985 Argentina, there were many people na pro-junta, pro-military, come from the military family, especially one of the lead lawyers, the number 2 dun sa prosecutors. He himself came from the family of military. But in the end, bumaliktad din yung iba Kasi nung narinig nila yung kwento ng mga tunay na biktima, na konsensya din sila, na namulat din sila. So, yun din ang nakikita ko, yung parang yung narinig natin dun sa mga ibang ka-DDS natin, ubusin yan, mga drugista yan, mga ganyan, yung mga ganyan mindset niya, yung mga ganyan na tao, you have to shame them into conscience. At i-remind mo sa kanila, sigurado ka ba, drugista talaga mga yan? And kung drugista ba sila, may due process po tayo, hindi mo pwedeng ganyan-ganyan mo lang dahil addict siya or hindi, or di ba? So, you know, that's why in your face dapat ang nangyari dito. And sa akin palagay, talaga may pagkakulang tayo dyan. Now, why is that important? Because I think as more Filipino people hear about the true stories of the victims, yung 59% ngayon na sinasabi na bukas sila sa ICC probe, pwede maging 70%, pwede maging 80% yan. Alam natin, a year ago, konti lang mga Pilipinas, siguro mga 20-30% lang bukas sa ICC. Then, naging almost 60%, dumoble. Pwede pang 70, 80, 90% yan. And the more na mga Pilipino ay bukas sa ICC at supportive of the ICC, the more na ma-pressure itong gobyerno natin to do its job. Because let's not forget, this is a Marcos Jr. administration. This is not an administration of Mandela, right? Or Gandhi. Or Martin Luther King. Hindi. This is a Marcos Jr. administration. So, there has to be a political imperative there. And that political imperative will not come about unless, guys, may pressure talaga. May pressure from the people, but the pressure from the people will not come kung walang compassion. And kung walang compassion, at hindi magkakaroon ng compassion kung hindi alam ng tao na talagang nangyari. At hindi malalaman ng tao kung ano talaga nangyari, kung hindi nila marinig yung kwento ng mga biktima mismo. Now, obviously, it's up to journalists, vloggers, whoever, to make sure na they feel safe and they say it in ways na magkaroon ng emotional resonance. Right? So sa akin palagay, the groundwork has not been done yet. Ang nangyari lang ngayon, guys, is purong mga ano lang, purong mga politika lang, partisanship, mga ganyan nangyari. Oh, 'di ba? Sino bang kausap na? Sino bang inaway niyo diyan? So, parati ko sinasabi, paano ka maging tunay na demokrasya kung ang dami mong impunity, ang dami EJK, ang dami ng kalokohan nangyari, and there was nothing done about it. That's not a democracy. That's not a real democracy, right? So, yun yung sinasabi ko dun, na there's nothing predetermined here. So, hindi ako kasing optimistic ng iba na sinasabi, magkakaroon ng ICC yan, it's just a matter of time, 2 months na lang, 3 months na lang. Okay. But to make sure na hindi wishful thinking yan, at to make sure na hindi maging cynical ang tao, something has to be done about it. There has to be public pressure, public clamor, and public pressure and clamor will come from compassion, will come from conscience, will come from people hearing more the stories of itong mga biktima na yan. Because in 2024, I think people are more open. Mas bukas sila para ma-express, no? Yung kanilang panic, no? At saka malaman na tayo yung kanilang kwento. Di ba, imagine if a child comes out, yung mga anak ng mga biktima come out and tell their story, real life story. Of course, alam natin, gagawin ng mga troll, yung mga ginagawa dito, pagtatawanan nila, sasabihin nila drama lang yan, ganun. Hayaan mo na mga yan. The truth will prevail if in your face constantly, di ba? Until you shake the conscience of the public. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Kasi this is a very dark chapter in our history, right? Grabe. Tens of thousands ang potential pinag-usapan dito. Banana Republic situation ito, right? This is even in addition to the whole West Philippines issue, among others na pinag-usapan natin yan. So, this is what I'm talking about, guys. Do not wait for things to happen. Make good things happen by fighting for the good fight. Yun ang dapat gagawin natin dito, guys. Right? Or yun ang dapat gagawin ng lahat ng mga tao na may kakayahan, may plataforma, di ba? To push for the cause of justice. Okay? Alright. Okay. Ito. Si Steven RDC, block natin yan. Ayan. Mga troll yan. Okay. Now, medyo mabigat na topic yan, di ba? I mean, of course, there also has to be pressure na for the Philippines to rejoin the ICC. Kasi alam niyo naman, controversial yung pag-withdrawal ni Digong sa ICC dahil walang concurrence of Senate. Pero as the Philippine Supreme Court put it, ang problema naman dito is, I don't know, napakahenyo mga constitutional experts natin, bakit walang specific provision on exiting, right, from a treaty, right? So dahil because of that gap in the Constitution, inabuse ni Digong yan, ang problema ngayon is, pag gustong bumalik ulit sa ICC, baka kailangan ng concurrence ng Senate, at dito talaga magkakaroon ng problema kasi andun yung mga tipo ni Bato, Robin Hood, and the whole ilk, right? So, yan ang complication natin ngayon. But there has to be pressure. There has to be mobilization. There has to be pressure. Kaya nga, yung mga tipo na, disinformation, hopeless case ng Philippines, you're not being helpful. You're not being helpful, guys. You have to fight for it. You have to push for a better Philippines. And for all you know, this could be a chapter of redemption for the Philippines, and this could be part of our journey to become a much more mature democracy. Now, transition naman tayo dyan ng konti, guys. Dito naman sa isa pang Duterte legacy. So, isang Duterte legacy, ito yung ICC, EJ case, itong mga grabing Banana Republic. Yung isa pa is, grabe ito Grabe itong isang kwento na ito. Para naging mayor to. Tapos nalaman lang yung kaso niya dahil dahil nahuli sa Pogo. I mean, this is crazy stuff. I mean, this is like kukulan. Kaya nga sabi ko, wala yung judicial system natin, daming kailangan pang ayusin, di ba? Mga basic minimum kailangan natin ayusin. So I don't know kung this ICC case will be kind of a watershed moment, or it will just be, flash in the pan. Hindi ko masabi. Kaya nga the best we can do is talagang to make sure that the fundamentals, the basics are there. Diba? Yun yung parati kong sinasabi. Alright. 1 second lang. Ito naman, once again, may expose din si Senator Rizon Tiveros. Wait, bakit ayaw na to? Crazy talaga. I mean,